This is the Sweet Song Podcast, where we unwrap your favorite songs. I'm your host, Kristi York Wooten, and on this episode, Australian singer-songwriter Emma Swift. She moved to Nashville in 2013 to find her roots. She's had some amazing records out since then, including Blonde on the Tracks, her remake of Bob Dylan's famous album, and her latest project, The Resurrection Game. We'll find out where those new songs came from. This is the Sweet Song Podcast. Emma Swift is one of our favorite singers and songwriters, mainly because she shows that powerfully lyrical and dense, intricate music. All these things can coexist at the same time and make a statement without being loud or brash. So it's kind of punk rock in the sense that it is using softness to make a statement. Emma made a splash with her Bob Dylan album, Blonde on the Tracks, and her latest, Resurrection Game, came out in 2025. And we'll talk about her love for American music in a minute, what she's done over the past few years since the pandemic, and her partner, who is also a songwriter, and hopefully meet some cats too, which I know she just put up, but we'll hopefully meet some cats as well. And welcome to the Sweet Song Podcast, Emma Swift.
Thank you so much for having me. I play like the gentlest punk possible.
The gentle punk, that can be, you need like a little shop in Nashville that's the gentle punk.
The gentle punk, yeah, I love that. I call it sadcore.
Sadcore, yeah. We'll get to all these terms because there's so many things that I want to say about it. A lot of my friends know that I discovered you when you were here in Atlanta opening for Robyn Hitchcock at Eddie's Attic. And it's been several years back. And I was just so taken with your voice and your delivery and, you know, just everything about the mood and the moment. So it just won me over. And it's wonderful in these days to be won over by someone in person, as opposed to relying only on the internet for music discovery.
Thanks so much. You know, I think everything is just so much nicer in real life. Not that there aren't great benefits to promoting and sharing music online, but there's something to me that's just really magical about the interplay of a person getting up on stage and sharing their song and then, you know, seeing people in the audience and in the moment and sharing that music and interacting. It's that's my favorite place to be musically. I love live more than the studio or way more than online. Live is where it's at.
So you're Australian.
Mm-hmm.
You came to the States, I think around 2013 is when you moved to.
Yeah.
And I think you had a radio show briefly where you played American music. Talk about some of the influences from your youngest days of songs that you latched onto the style or something that just sparked something in you.
I'm a kid of the 80s, and but my parents were at college in the 1970s. So a lot of the music that I first got into when I was a kid and teaching myself to sing was either a mix of kind of hippie Laurel Canyon or new wave. And I really took a shine to my dad's Linda Ronstadt records. And I loved the strength in her voice in particular. And she was also, you know, she wasn't a songwriter. So she was picking these amazing covers to do. She would do Elvis Costello songs or Warren Zevon songs and jazz standards, you know. And I just thought she was the bomb. And she even, you know, one of those records was Living in the USA. So that was even my first idea that, you know, of America as a place where people made music.
When did you kind of come to realize the sound that I think is your part of what genre we can sort of couch you in, because you're really kind of indescribable in that way, but on the Americana bent? The word Americana, when I was growing up, wasn't used to talk about popular music. It mainly talked about like Western movies or cowboy outfits, things that were something to do with the West. But of course, that term now means not country and Western per se, but something that evokes possibly folk influence from American folk singers, all of these things. So in Australia, were you able to kind of get a grasp on that? Because I think that's what your radio show was about, right?
It was. I mean, back in the 90s, I guess genre is such a weird thing, but back in the 90s, it was kind of called alt country. And so it's bands like Uncle Tupelo or the Jayhawks or Gillian Welch, Ryan Adams, those kinds of people were making Americana. And the the early versions of that Americana is probably the best example of that is something like The Band or Neil Young, Joni Mitchell. So yeah, that's the kind of music that I was super into in my early 20s. And I got there via a couple of Gillian Welch records, Soul Journey and Revelator. Also a big Lucinda Williams fan. And she kind of does, it's funny because I don't think in any way she sounds like Linda Ronstadt, but she does country rock essentially, but it became called Americana. So I had a particularly fond love of World Without Tears, which is one of the records she put out in the early 2000s. And Emmylou Harris' Wrecking Ball as well kind of had that iconic Daniel Lanois production. So it was taking country and making it sort of a little bit more like alternative rock in a way. And I've always loved Emmylou Harris's voice. I just think she's amazing.
I love that atmospheric sound you're talking about. And
Yeah.
no one had really done that really, I think, until the 90s. I know that all those women were kind of making their way, but I know that like Roseanne Cash is in that group of women too, that were really testing the boundaries of what American country music was doing to women. I think you'll see they all had big hair at once and then they like, oh, no, it's okay. We can let the hair down, but we can also start playing with textures that aren't the typical country music sound. Is there an American songwriter you have not met that you would love to pick their brain, or somebody who's from an ancient time who's no longer with us?
As a songwriter, I mean, there's plenty. Yeah, I really love Judy Sill. And she passed, before I was born. But I think that her particular style of folk music was really quite magical because she had grown up in the church. And so it interplayed within her kind of Laurel Canyon sound is this kind of Bach melodies, and it's really quite haunted. And beautiful. So I really like her music. I really like Bill Callahan, who writes like these really sad, lonesome. He's like a sad, lonesome cowboy figure, almost.
Godfather of sadcore, maybe?
Probably godfather of sadcore. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of folks that I really admire. And then I mean Dolly Parton on that classic country thing, because I love that too. Like, I don't make that music, and partly is because I'm Australian, so my voice just sounds ridiculous. But Tammy Wynette is one of my favorite singers, and Dolly Parton's an incredible writer, and the mythology of 1960s country music and the women played in 60s country was something I was very curious and interested in when I first moved here. That was one of the most appealing parts of coming to Nashville was, the ghosts of all the old studio recordings and what had happened here.
Did you buy into a mythology about what Nashville was going to be like? Had you longed for it for a while? And if so, what was different about it once you finally got there?
I think that when I came here, it kind of was what it said on the label. It was a place where people made music everywhere all the time. And the idea that I would go to a city and everybody in my neighborhood would have like a building in their yard that also had a world-class recording studio. I mean, that's just crazy. If you're an Australian person, it's wild. But I think, one of the funny things about Nashville is that you come here thinking, oh yes, this is where they make country music. And certainly like I was down on Lower Broadway yesterday and that's what it's all about. And, but then there's a lot more diverse music and diversity happening in the city outside of that. And you get to discover that. It was a really special time to be moving here. It was pre-tech kind of taking off in big cities because Airbnb didn't exist. It was still pretty affordable to move to as a younger person trying to make a life and trying to move into a completely different country. And I really, I feel so lucky that I did that. Now that I'm a bit older and a bit more responsible, I think, gosh, that was a crazy, unhinged thing to do. I'd been a journalist in Australia, so I had quite a good, stable job. And coming here definitely upended that. But I think that that was really good. It was good for me creatively. Because I knew that I wanted to write songs, but I really didn't have any idea how. I hadn't figured that out. It wasn't something that necessarily came naturally to me in the way that, you asked me earlier about singing, and I was always singing as a kid, but the songwriting came much, much.
I saw something on the internet. There's always a meme that's passing by that gives some wisdom at some point, but I saw something about being on your path and you're on your path when you can't see it. And that's kind of sounds like the bravery it takes to jump into a life in Nashville, ultimately as a songwriter from being a journalist in Australia and just moving your whole life to another part of the world and jumping in.
Yeah, I think that it was the timing was exactly right. It was the perfect thing for me to do. Um, and I just loved it, and I still love it. I mean, I'm always, live music is very nourishing for me as a person. Um, I love going out to see gigs. Like this past weekend, I went and saw three of my friends play in a yard party at a record store, Vinyl Tap, and it was just wonderful to be part of that community and see their different bands, and it's just really nice.
After having seen you perform at Eddie's Attic and then getting to know you first through your album. I know you did an album in Australia that won some country music awards, but a lot of people came to you through your interpretations of Bob Dylan. And I wanted to ask you about that transition from having people interpret you and your art form based on another person's songwriting now to getting to really know you as a songwriter and on your end, what that's been like.
It's been really strange and very special. I mean, I was quite nervous to put out that record of Bob Dylan songs, and the project started because I had writer's block, but I didn't know what to do. So I decided I would record these Bob Dylan songs, and it was, a super fun experience. I worked in a great tiny studio in East Nashville, and then I just sat on the record for years. But the pandemic happened, and I didn't have anything to do, and so I thought, oh, you know what? I've got all these Dylan songs. I'll just put this record out. And I really, Kristi, it was so low stakes. Really, it was just like, I'm going to throw this out. But much to my surprise and delight, people really liked it. And it resonated with folks. And that was kind of amazing that people liked the way that I sang those songs. And I love Bob Dylan's music, but many people have covered Bob Dylan songs, so I didn't really feel like I was doing anything. I wasn't doing anything unique. But for some reason, possibly because of the time, people were stuck at home and going through their record collections. There's something about that album that just resonated with folks, which I feel really lucky about. And then, of course, I had the absolutely terrifying prospect of following it up with an album of my own songs, and that took a little while longer. But we made it, and now I've got an EP coming out that has more of my own songs, and then I've got another covers project in the works, but this time instead of all Bob Dylan songs, it's all Lou Reed songs.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Well, I wanted to piggyback on what you said about the the Blonde on the Tracks coming out during the pandemic, but there was so many little elements that came together. I remember, I think I ordered the vinyl from you, and I wrote you, I was like, "I haven't got my record yet. I'm so excited." And you're like, "I'm trying to get them all out because like it's so popular. All this is happening." And I would just remember being so happy for you that all of that was happening. I do think it was just a mix of people maybe revisiting songs that they know, or maybe revisiting songwriters that they love, including Bob Dylan. But don't discount your own contribution to what people needed. I think having your voice on those lyrics, and I think that people were revisiting not only for nostalgia, but just reviewing and kind of reanalyzing some of the music that they may have liked. Not that Bob Dylan's music needs analyzing in a negative way, but that you provided just a totally new angle that people just didn't see coming.
Well, it's nice to give a feminine twist to things, you know. I admire lots of female songwriters as well, you know, and I've talked about them. But in terms of covering their songs, I feel like there's not much that I can add. You know, what can I add to a Lucinda Williams song that she's not already bringing with, you know, the incredible gravitas in her voice, and Gillian Welch or anything like that. So I think there's something to be said about taking these canonical male songwriters and giving it a feminine twist. Because obviously, you know, when I sing, I think one of the most compelling things about Bob Dylan's voice is how kind of grumpy he can be. You know, so like when he sings "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right," he's like, really, it's like you can see it's got the middle fingers in the air are kind of implied in the way that he sings it. Whereas if I'm singing "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right," there's a kind of, it's a bit more tender.
Yeah. Well, and I think I Contain Multitudes got a lot of attention, some of the others. But which one of those would you say was your sweet Bob Dylan song? It could be from your Blonde on the Tracks, but it could also be any Dylan
I
song.
mean, I think Multitudes is kind of one of the things that I love so much about that song is it's so rich in detail. It's kind of all at once, it seems like a confessional piece of work, and yet it tells us nothing at all. And Dylan is so kind of amusing and enchanting because he makes stuff up all the time. He's been making stuff up since he was a kid. You know, he moved to New York and told everybody he'd been in the circus. It was all lies, you know. So when he sings "I Contain Multitudes," we go, yeah, okay, but what's real? Like, do you really drive fast cars and eat fast food, Bob? Or are you on like a macrobiotic diet and you're just throwing us a red herring here? So that one I really love. And the other one, I mean, all of the songs on that record I really enjoy. Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands is just so deeply romantic and beautiful. And I really wanted to do that song because it felt like climbing Mount Everest as a song. You know, it goes for 11 minutes and 58 seconds.
Yeah.
It's epic.
That's a lot of vinyl right there. That's
That,
like
it's,
it's like a whole inch, right? Or two. Uh, well, let's talk about so the time between that record and this record. Obviously, the pandemic. You had some personal things going on. I mean, who didn't? Some people had financial problems during the pandemic. Other people had health problems. Other people had, you know, the loss of their job or AI or algorithms seeming to take over everything. And then, of course, not to mention political division. So I know that when we get to, you know, looking at the tracks on the Resurrection Game, it's all of those things together, really.
yeah. And I had actually done pretty well through the pandemic in terms of my health and work. I just sort of was able to make it work. But you know, it's funny how these things, life just catches up on you. And so, yeah, around 2023, I had a pretty bad mental health episode. The extreme shorthand of that is I'm fine now. I'm doing great. But there was a year there where I was sort of out for the count, not around. And I had started this record, The Resurrection Game, but I was in no way able to do much of anything at all. So 2023 is like one of those years in my life where some people think of like 2020 is like, oh no. 2023 for me is my version of that. But you know, it's like we live in a culture where there's not much room for struggle within capitalism, whether that's losing your job or losing your health or some kind of other interpersonal crisis. And then sometimes you've just got to take your time out and then come back. And I'm really lucky, you know, I'm back. Things are good. And the record is a little bit about that. You know, the record it's a lot of me trying to come to terms with what that experience was like and then put it into song.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm also very grateful that you're okay because I know that those of us who have kind of, especially during the pandemic and since the pandemic, artists that I follow or even friends or people that I know in real life, when people share things about what they're going through online, it does sort of kind of bring your community together around you, or at least you hope that would. And it's weird to have like an online community versus real life when it's something other than selling records, for example. When you share about your personal life and the people know about it and how they circle around you. So I want to thank you for being brave in doing that because I think you did that all along. And I think those of us who were witnessing whatever you did share with us, we were rooting for you. And also, the music feels almost like when you invest something emotionally in someone else, even if you just say a prayer or a wish or you're thinking of them, somehow that's going to end up somewhere swirling, in the project, in the music, what comes out. I think that that's the way I view things that have happened to me or people who have reached out to me. So I hope you felt love from people that are in your online community.
Absolutely did. And I think it's really important, like online is great for being able to share music but it can also be very 2D, like played a show, it was great. Next. Here's the next show.
Right.
And sometimes life isn't that great and to be able to say it's I'm not okay, and then to have people go, "Well, we're thinking of you." Like, I'm a little like you, like, it's a bit of a hippie thing, but, like, when people put their whether it's prayer or candle or positive thoughts or whatever, I do think that that stuff helps. I think artists are also we're supposed to make ourselves vulnerable. It's kind of what is appealing about it's one of the most appealing things about art.
Let's talk about some of the songs on the record. So I spent the weekend with the record again, listening and just enveloping. I had to make an hour-long drive, so each way. So I was able to listen to the record uninterrupted, so I was able to commune with that and the sounds. So I wanna talk to you about the songs, kind of what you are I hate to say most proud of because that's such a trite question, but something where you feel like, "Hey, I captured what I wanted to capture."
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I'm incredibly proud of this record because I think, one, you kind of have to be, and two, like, if I go back to that person who was 8 years old listening to records going, it all seemed completely impossible then. And now to have this thing that's all my own songs, it's a real thing of wonder. I still, to go, I did that. Great. And I didn't do it alone. So I guess what I'm most proud of in this project is I really love the cinematic strings that Jordan Lanning brought to the project. Jordan's my producer. And so like Nothing and Forever, which is the first track, it's just got this deeply romantic cinematic sound. And it sounds so big and also otherworldly and ethereal and yeah, I'm really proud of that. On other songs, there's places that I was able to go lyrically that I'm thrilled about as well. It's there's a tenderness to the record, and it's not, thank you so much for listening to it in the car because it's not you don't it's not like putting on a B-52s record and going, "Yeah, I'm heading down the Atlanta highway. This is so fun."
When you really are heading down the Atlanta highway, you'll be on the Atlanta highway this week. I know you will.
So, it's sort of, to me, there's a kind of beautiful sadness in this record. At least that's what I wanted to achieve. And so I hope that the listeners can connect with that.
Well, some of the lyrics really stood out to me too because I was able to I consider myself a professional listener, although sometimes I don't do as good a job of listening deeply as I could just due to the distractions of life. But it'll sneak up on you. The record is very lush. It's just gorgeous, as you mentioned, with strings and just different sounds. And you're wonderful at recording your voice and just getting the breath escaping. And that is there's very few artists in all of recorded time who can really capture that lightness of the air flowing out as well as, what the words are meaning and how all of that goes together. So that was probably my favorite thing about the record is just I could feel you breathing when you are singing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thanks. I do, I care a lot about the vocal and the emotion of the vocal. And, it's so funny because we're animals, And so even like the day of the week that you record the vocal on or where you're at in, hormonally or country you're in or how close your mouth is up to the microphone.
The humidity in the air.
Yeah, the weather, the human voice as an instrument is really it's quite fascinating because like there's no way, like I'm not a good singer in the skill set of like if I record a song one day and then I was in the studio the next day and got the direction, okay, sing it just like you did yesterday. I don't know if I could do that. I'd be like, okay, I can try, but you know,
Well, and that's the beauty of recordings. So, when music, hopefully people will always perform live, but Lord knows what happens in this world, but people discovering, hopefully music will be around 100, 1,000 years from now, whatever, discovering recordings. You're discovering the magic of a day, of a moment. I love nothing in forever, no happy endings. I just want people to, these will sneak up on you. They're much deeper than they sound when you are listening to the beauty of it. I want people to make sure that they listen to the words too.
That's thanks. Yeah. I mean, I do care about the words a lot, I probably a little bit too much. But it's to write a good song and to get a good rhyme is always, fun. And yeah, as you say, they're not throwaway songs. They're not placeholder lyrics.
Another thing I thought about on the Resurrection Game is songs with the word game in them that came to mind, like The Crying Game.
Mhm.
Another beautiful song that was from a film. There's The Waiting Game by Swing Out Sister. There's so many songs with.
There's Wicked Game by Chris Isaac.
I did think about that as well. Yeah, so it's like a good word to have in a song title.
Well, I like the idea of death and rebirth rather than thinking, in a metaphorical sense of being like a game. Like, okay, I'm back. I'm back at the game, and so that was kind of born out of that. And, some words are just fun to sing. But yeah, it's a good word.
All right, so we'll have to end on something fun. So is Ringo there?
I can get Ringo.
That's
Hold on.
This is making me so happy. He's so gorgeous.
Isn't he the cutest? I mean,
Animals are the best. They're our soulmates, right?
that's exactly right. And they're very healing. And he's just the cutest little guy. He's got the roundest face and the most serious eyes. Haven't you, Ringo?
I love that. And I love seeing your life. And I remember when you and Robyn were doing your sort of, I think you had a catchy name, but your little live broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, the pets, that was kind of one of the nicer things about the pandemic. We did a lot of live streaming and from our house and people could see our pets and we could see other people's pets. And when I play live shows now and I'm by the merch after the gig, one of the nicest parts of that is people come up and they're like, "Hey, this is my dog," or "This is my cat." These are my kids, you get to know people. I mean, the most beautiful thing about music is community and that connecting with folks. And, that's hopefully even in the face of AI and, and all of that, we'll still be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, let's finish with just a couple quick round of songs. Give us maybe a couple of songs that maybe we haven't mentioned that we would be surprised that you love, either old songs or new songs.
I don't know if anybody, I think people wouldn't be surprised, but like, okay, I've got to try and think of something surprising then. Okay, like something really off brand for me, but very Australian is like, I love In Excess. So, anything, like Suicide Blonde by In Excess or, one of their kind of pop hits, lots of Australian stuff. What else am I into that people might be surprised by? Oh, I really love Careless Whisper by George Michael. I'm a big George Michael fan. I think he was amazing and his voice was so beautiful. Yeah, I guess because everything I talk about when I talk about my own music is like very sadcore or emotional, but like the more fun side of me, especially when I was a kid, my first favorite pop artist was Cyndi Lauper, and I had The Girls Just Want to Have Fun 7-inch, and I just thought that she was amazing and enchanting and so cool. And I just watched a documentary on her, and it was great. I loved it.
Have you ever seen her perform?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw her play in Nashville. She was opening for Rod Stewart. Again, another sweet song, Maggie May. I love it. I love the classic rock of the 60s and the 70s and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned the NXS song. Gosh, there was nothing better than Michael Hutchence for sure. It's so sad with Michael gone, but I hope one day they do make it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They were on the list this year,
Mhm.
kind of make it across the finish line, but maybe the fans will keep going so they can.
I hope so. I mean, he was just such a beautiful, sexy man. And the idea that there would be like a kind of Australian rock and roll heartthrob, that was really cool. You know, listening to that band, it was something we were immensely proud of as Australians. Because like the other stuff that was popular coming out of Australia was like completely different. Like other bands that I really like too, but like Midnight Oil, very different.
Yeah.
Very different world.
And then you had the New Zealanders and you had Crowded House and all of that good stuff.
Well, I mean, I love Crowded House. Neil Finn is just one of the most beautiful songwriters. Don't Dream It's Over and all of those records. He did that great, just sort of like post Beatles romantic thing. So much of his songs are really beautiful.
Yeah. Very, very sweet. What about a Robyn song? What's your sweet Robyn song?
Gosh, I love so many Robyn songs. I mean, I get exposed to them all the time. I really like Madonna of the Wasps. I think he has a song called New York Doll, which is one of his sort of later period songs that's quite devastating. I like the really sad Robyn songs.
I like the really happy ones or the pretend to be happy ones.
The really happy ones are great too. You know, he's kind of good at mixing because he's got such a wry, nihilistic worldview. He's good at mixing that into his songs and making it sound fun.
One of the favorite things I ever heard him do though was when he did the covers and he did the cover of Ghost in You by
Yeah.
Furs. That's
Oh gosh, and I love the Psychedelic Furs too. What a fantastic band. So good.
so fun. Well, thank you, Emma, for spending this much time. I really appreciate it. And I'm always rooting for you.
Well, that's so kind. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just delighted that you're interested in the project. And yeah, it's great. I really appreciate it.
The Sweet Song Podcast is hosted by Kristi York Wooten, that's me, and produced by Sustenance Group, LLC. Special thanks to this week's guest. Be sure to check out full episodes wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe and like on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Visit Pure Pop for Now, people, for more information, and we'll see you next week.